This is a video about the incorporation of two of my properties. So as previously mentioned, I do have a number of properties that I hold in my personal name. I had started to do a few years ago when I had a rather rubbish accountant who advised me to do things this way. I eventually had to stop doing this because what he was advising was erroneous. So I ended up owning a number of personal properties, and now I have to pay all this personal tax on them, which has become very high. So as two of them have come up for remortgage, I'm investigating options of moving them into the company. So the mortgages were lined up. So one of them houses social housing tenants. So the mortgages for these kinds of properties can generally be given by more specialist lenders. So as I was previously able to get mortgages for these properties, I looked into this option again. My broker was able to find a mortgage for the property, which was a social housing mortgage, and enabled me to move it from personal to company. I decided to move these two into the company because since I bought them, their prices have not increased drastically. They have increased somewhat but not drastically, which means the capital gains tax would be quite low, and the stamp duty, although significant, would almost be affordable. Plus the social housing property that I'm trying to move into my company has very high yield, which makes it all worthwhile to move it into the company. So the remortgage was underway, but then after a few weeks, my broker informed me that the lender had stopped providing social housing mortgages. So all the work and progress that had been undertaken was irrelevant. So it became into a semi-emergency kind of situation where I have a property that's gone into variable rate. It needs a new mortgage that will allow for social housing, but this is not currently available. So he was able to find me another product, a temporary product, which lowered my monthly payment, which was much lower than the variable rate my previous mortgage had moved on to. But also importantly, it had very low early redemption charges, ERCs. This means that if you cancel this mortgage, you'll have a penalty. ERCs can be 3,000, 5,000, perhaps more in some cases. In this case, the ERC would be £1,000. So as it's a temporary mortgage that I have for this property, which is in my personal name, if I'm later able to find a product that will allow for social housing and move my property into the limited company, then I could cancel this product, pay a fee of £1,000 and apply the new mortgage. With regards to the other property, the value had appreciated more, but perhaps not enough to prohibit me from moving it into the limited company. So I did investigate the option of moving it into the company. This is a possibility, but I'm also considering the fact that the rent I've not been able to increase significantly. The tenants have been very good, long-standing tenants who I don't charge excessively. They pay below market rent. This is not always an issue because they look after the property. There are never any maintenance issues. It's the property that I analysed a few years ago, and at the time it was my lowest earning property, but it was also my highest yielding property because there was never any issues from the tenants. They looked after the property and never damaged it, which means there were no costs and I was therefore making more. But now the price has increased, I haven't pushed the rent up too much. So there's the option of moving it into the company, but I'm also investigating the option to sell it. It's generally never a good idea to sell properties. If you buy them, the prices are likely to go up, and as long as you're providing good quality housing to people, they will be working as a viable investment whilst also giving people a place to live. But this property is becoming a bit questionable, as in the price has increased but the rent hasn't increased, and the new mortgage that I would get, even if it's in the limited company, is likely to be at a higher rate due to interest rates. So I could potentially still move this into the company, but it may also be a good time to sell. I've sold one of my other personal properties recently as well. The first time I've sold a property, and I'd very much prefer not to, but many of these properties are becoming inviable as investments due to tax and law changes. So overall, I've had two properties that have come up for remortgage. The social housing one seems a very viable option to move into the company. I just need to find the correct product for it. My broker will help me research this. Maybe it can be done, maybe not. Otherwise I'll have to reconsider it. And the other property, I'm considering moving into the company, but I'm also considering selling. I've also had some of these properties examined in terms of conversions. The issue is quite a few of my personally held properties are new build properties, and there's not much that can be done with the construction with regards to the way they've been constructed. They've been very efficiently built and designed, which means they do not have much space in their surrounding areas to build out into. They don't have incorporated garages that could be converted into home offices or separate rooms. So it seems likely that I don't have the probability of adding value via planning permission before selling the properties, or actually converting them and then selling, which should also theoretically add value. It's just that there is not much potential to do these with the new build properties. Thanks for listening. See you next time.